Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video where I'm talking about the books that I picked up in 2024 but didn't finish. As I've mentioned on this channel, 2024 and 2023 weren't exactly prolific reading years for me. I feel like I've only just started to come out of this major reading slump of mine in the last few months. But in 2024, I was trying to read. I wanted to come back to BookTube. I wanted to be excited to read. So in addition to the books that I did actually finish, there were a number of books that I picked up and started, and then for whatever reason, put back down. So I'm going to talk to you about some of those books and determine whether they are truly DNFs for me, books that I'm not going to revisit, or if they are books that I am going to want to pick up at some point to finish them. So why don't we dive right in? The first book that I want to talk about is Z by Therese Ann Fowler. And this is a novelization of the life of Zelda Fitzgerald, F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife, who was an author in her own right. And this is a book that I was excited to read because I had read another book by Fowler called A Well-Behaved Woman, which was about Alva Vanderbilt. And the Vanderbilts are from the area that I currently live in. So there was a little connection there. And I really enjoyed that book. Really enjoyed the writing style. It was effortless, breezy, but also didn't feel overly fluffy. I was really invested in the characters that were being discussed. And so wanted to read this one on Zelda. And I was enjoying it and got well over the 50% mark with the audiobook and then just put it down. And so this is a book, as I mentioned, about Zelda Fitzgerald. She is a Southern belle, and her family has some unfortunate ties to Jim Crow and I believe to slavery, and she comes from money. And in comes F. Scott Fitzgerald, a northerner with no money to his name, and he feels like he has to prove himself worthy of Zelda before he's able to marry her. And the book really starts with their courtship, and as far as I got, we were into their marriage. He's published some books that have been really successful, and then he's published some that have not garnered the sort of critical acclaim or fame that he hopes to achieve. They have a daughter, but then I stopped, and I don't know what happens. I know biographically what happens, but I don't know how the book approaches it. So I do think this is a book that I would like to pick up again, to be quite honest, because I was enjoying it, and I honestly don't remember what prevented me from finishing it. So I feel like this might be a book that I try to finish in the next few months, maybe for Women's History Month. And I feel like that would be nice to maybe try to wrap that one up. But yeah, this is a book that I don't know why I put it down. I honestly don't. So this is not a DNF. I definitely want to pick it back up. The next book that I want to talk about is The Summer Wives by Beatriz Williams. And this is a book and an author that I feel like every time I'm in Barnes and Nobles, I see her books out on the table, and the covers always speak to me. They're usually kind of monochromatic, or like monotone, maybe is the correct expression. This one is very green with these sort of glamorous vintage looking photographs of women, very like on trend, and that's how they feel like they've been for a number of years. But I never buy the books, never pick them up. I don't know why. So I decided to listen to the audiobook of The Summer Wives, and I didn't get very far. I looked on my Libby reading journey and I got through about an hour and a half of the book, and it's nearly a 9-hour book. So I really, really didn't get terribly far into it. The book itself is set in the 1950s. This woman, Miranda, who is from this island, Winthrop, has returned now that she's a famous, I think, Shakespearean author, to where her mother has married um, this wealthy, well-to-do man. She's back. She's been gone for a number of years. She's no longer, the teenage ingenue type, very naive, etc. She's not that anymore. And she's back on the island, and things are starting to happen. As I said, I didn't get very far in the book. My understanding that is that this book is love story meets redemption meets sort of a class struggle, because on Winthrop Island you have the very well-to-do families that have their summer homes here, and that's the sort of group that Miranda's mother has married into, and so she now kind of sort of belongs to it as well. And then you have everyone else, who are the domestic workers, the fishermen, etc., who work for the people who own the summer houses and then also just, work for a living. They are kind of the lower classes. So there is some sort of class struggle there, but again, didn't get very far into the book to truly understand it. I know there's also some sort of mystery kind of in this whole story as well, because I think someone had been killed at some point nearly 20 years ago, which I believe is why Miranda left in the first place. And now that person has either escaped from prison or been released. Regardless, I can see that causing some complications for Miranda in the future. As you can tell, didn't get very far in this book, so don't have that much to tell you. Is this a book that I would revisit? No. I think this is DNF for me. It's not that I was necessarily hating or even or disliking the writing. It's just that I don't think that I was enjoying it enough to really want to pick it back up again and give it another try. It was just kind of okay to be, writing style wise, okay to me, character development wise. Like, I really wasn't truly invested in the story, which again is probably why I didn't even get 2 hours into the audiobook on 1.45 speed. Bear that in mind. I listen to these faster than the original narration. So I do think that this is going to be a DNF for me. The next book is a historical romance called Anna Maria and the Fox by Liana de la Rosa. And this was a book that I discovered because I think the second book in this Luna Sisters series was mentioned in some New York Times article that I read that was talking about historical romance books that you should look out for. And I had just finished reading the Evie Dunmore series and was so really looking for something to fill that void now that I have finished that off. And so I figured, why not give this a shot? I did not get very far. I don't know how far I got, but I didn't get very far at all. And you know how I know that? Because the love interest hadn't even made an appearance. Like, he hadn't popped up in the book yet. But essentially, Ana Maria and her sisters have been sent from Mexico, which is currently being occupied by the French, to London for safety, essentially. And they are going to be more or less introduced to society and, living among the British aristocracy and well-to-do. And Gideon Fox, the fox of the title, is kind of sort of one of them. He has raised himself up out of the gutters, essentially, and is now a member of parliament, and he's fighting to have a law passed to abolish the Atlantic slave trade, partly because he is the grandson of a formerly enslaved woman. And so, as I mentioned, we have not seen him at the point where I stopped reading the book. They have just arrived in London and are kind of trying to figure out where they are living, who is their chaperone, all of that sort of thing. I love the idea of this. I do. I love that it's so diverse. I love that, like Evie Dunmore, this book seems to be also tackling some of the you know, Victorian era societal issues kind of head on, but in a way that isn't going to be, I don't think, heavy, because this is a historical romance first and foremost. But I did not get very far, and to be honest, I feel like I wasn't a huge fan of the characters or the writing here. Which, considering I didn't get far, I don't know that that's a fair assessment, but I do think this is probably going to be another DNF for me. I feel like there are so many other historical romance books and series out there that I might just enjoy a little bit more. The fact that I put this down so early just tells me that my heart wasn't in it. So, unfortunately, I'm going to DNF it and continue to look for the next kind of Evie Dunmore like series to fill that historical romance vibe and void. The next book is Himself by Jess Kidd, which again, I was trying to listen to this as an audiobook, and again, I did not get particularly far, which surprised me because I tend to enjoy Jess Kidd's writing. I read Things in Jars a couple of years ago and really, really enjoyed it, which surprised me. And then I read Mr. Flood's Last Resort, which I didn't love quite as much as Things in Jars, but Things in Jars had set a very high bar as far as Jess Kidd's writing goes. What I love in general is that the characters are a little bit quirky and eccentric and just really colorful in that way. There's something kind of humorous and almost mischievous about the writing and the characters, again, which I find particularly endearing and enjoy. They're easy, effortless books to read. I don't know what happened here as far as my enjoyment of the book. I do think Himself is, at least to the point that I got, quite different from the others. So the main character, Mahoney, is has lived under the impression that his mother abandoned him in Dublin, and he kind of gets a tip off that that's not actually the case, and there might have been some foul play involved in why he was abandoned, essentially. And so he decides to go back to this very small rural village to get answers. Um, and as I said, I was very early into the book, so I haven't found out what happens, but I'm assuming that his appearance in the town turned some heads, not necessarily in a positive way. So would I revisit this? I actually think yes. I feel like maybe this is one that I need to actually sit down and read as a physical book, which sometimes happens. There are some books that I get on with as physical books more so than as an audiobook. This would definitely be one that I am willing to give another shot just because I have enjoyed Jess Kidd's writing before. And, if I do give it another shot and don't get very far, then I think that's that. But yeah, I think this is another book that I would give another chance to. The next book that I want to talk about is a physical book, which, to be quite honest, was probably a little bit ambitious for someone who was trying to come out of a reading slump. I was still very much in it in those days. I think I tried to read it February of last year, and I think it appeared in a couple of the vlogs that I put up then at that time. It's The Narrows by Ann Petry. As I said, probably overly ambitious. It is a thicker book, nearly 500 pages. It is on a more serious topic than the other books that I was able to read during the reading slump. And so I think I just kind of set myself up for failure here. Because the fact of the matter is, Ann Petry, who's the author of The Street, which is a phenomenal book. I'm obsessed with. Like, I read that book and couldn't shut up about it. The writing was just top notch, chef's kiss. Ann Petry's life story, as far as being, I think it's that she's the first Black woman to sell 1 million copies of her novel in the United States, and The Street was that novel. It was great. It had the most like jaw-dropping ending. Like, I wanted more people to read it so that I could talk about it at the time. So I have high expectations for this, and I think I do need to give it another shot. I think it's just that I need to make sure that I am for sure out of the reading slump so that the size of the book and the subject matter don't scare me off. But this is another book that deals with race in the United States. The main character, Link Williams, is a Ivy League educated Black man. He'd served in the military. He's now home, and there aren't many opportunities for him because of his race. And he ends up saving a woman one night, and it's only after they like safely get themselves inside and sort of the adrenaline rush of the rescue subsides that they realize that he's Black and she's white. And so it goes into this relationship or whatever that might be. I don't know if it's truly romantic or not. Um, it dives into that and, society as a whole. As I said, her books deal with weightier subjects and do so in a very interesting and compelling way because she is living during the time in which she's writing. So this is like based on real life experiences for her. Um, but I just didn't get very well. It's not that I didn't get very far. I think I got like 100 to 150 pages in, but I just haven't had the chance to pick it back up again. So I do think I'm going to give this another shot. I do think that if I am picking it up again, though, I am going to have to start it from the very beginning because it's been over a year since I started it, and some of the details are a little bit hazy. But I do think this is another book that I will give a second, potentially a third chance to, because I do think I tried to read this in 2023 as well, and maybe only got like 20 pages in. So, not the sort of book you should be reading during a reading slump, but hopefully I am out of that now and so can really tackle it. And the final book that I want to talk about is The Light Years by Elizabeth Jane Howard. And this is the first book in the Cazalet Chronicles, which is like a series based on this family, the Cazalets, living in England during World War II. The first book is kind of the summer before all hell breaks loose, for lack of a better expression. This is a series that I came to know about because I watched the television series that I think was BBC, and it had some actors in it that I adore. Leslie Manville, and I believe Hugh Bonneville from Downton Abbey was also in it, if I'm remembering rightly. But it only had one season, so it didn't get picked up for a second one. And so that one in particular, I think, addresses this book. So I wanted to give it a shot. I have tried. It is a thicker book. It's currently not here, and I don't want to wake Memphis, who is sleeping over there. But it is a bigger book, so kind of in the same way that The Narrows was a little bit ambitious for me during a reading slump. I haven't really gotten very far, but it is a book that I really, really want to sink my teeth into, and I actually have put it back on my currently reading list to try to give it a shot. I think I just need to really attempt it in bite-sized chunks, and if it takes me a full month to read it, that's what it takes me. But it is a book that, because I really enjoyed the series, I really, really, really want to give the book a shot. again. I mean, I think I read like 20 pages the first time I attempted it. So we're gonna give it a college try, and you know, hopefully this is a series I can really get behind as someone who tends to read more historical fiction, literary fiction, nonfiction. There aren't that many series out there. Those are not genres that particularly have a lot of them. It's not like sci-fi or fantasy where I do feel like those books alone lend themselves to a series because of the world building. I do really enjoy it when I find one in my genre to really fangirl about. So, you know, hopefully this can be one of them. So, yeah, those are the books that I started in 2024 and didn't finish. I think for the most part, I am truly interested in giving them a second chance, or in some cases, a third chance. But anyway, I think that's it for now. So, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and want to see more from me, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and comment if you fancy. But thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye!